Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is being urged to take medical leave amid growing concern about his health. The World Health Organization sets a goal to eliminate hepatitis by 2030. And head-turning looks from the stars on this year's Met Gala red carpet. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidu Ewart in for Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight with concerns over the health of Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. More than a dozen civil society leaders in Nigeria have written an open letter to the president asking him to take immediate medical leave. The 74-year-old Buhari returned home in March after nearly 2 months of medical treatment abroad. At that time, Buhari said he would need more rest and health tests. In the letter dated May 1st, political activists noted Buhari's absence from the last 2-week cabinet meetings. They also pointed to speculation about his ability to run Africa's most populous nation and the biggest economy. A Buhari spokesperson declined to comment on the letter. But last week, another spokesperson said Buhari received daily briefings on the activities of the government, adding that he had gone through the worst period of his recovery in London. Now, for more on President Buhari's health concerns, I'm joined by VOA Hausa reporter Mariam Dauda. Mariam, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Now, Mariam, there's not much coming from the president's office about his illness. What are your sources telling you about his ailment?
Well, actually, many Nigerians are really concerned about the health being of the president, and the presidency is not addressing so much of these questions. The most that we know is that the president admitted when he came back from a medical leave in March that he has never been that sick. But our sources are really digging for more details.
Now, Mariam, I understand that former heads of Nigerian government met in Minna for talks. This is kind of unusual. Do you know if these talks had anything to do with Buhari's health concerns?
Actually, just like you said, it's very unusual, but none of them is saying anything about their meeting, so we don't really know. But like I said, our sources are also digging on that story to know if their meeting is related to the president's health or not.
Again, Mariam, we know that the Constitution of Nigeria does provide for the president to allow the vice president to take over so he can seek medical leave outside of the country. But now he is ill and in the country. What does the Constitution say about a situation like this where he is incapacitated, perhaps, and because he hasn't been seen in public for quite some time? What does it say? Who acts?
Actually, that is the constitutional lacuna that the National Assembly will have to address, because many Nigerians are really concerned. When he was traveling in March, he transferred power to the vice president, but now he is in the country, and obviously he is not performing his duties, and the president also is not taking the responsibility. So what is going to happen?
And what are Nigerians generally saying when you talk to, people in Nigeria?
Actually, they're really concerned. They want to know the truth. They want the government, the presidency, to come out and speak the truth and tell them what is going on with the president, what are his ailments. That is what they are concerned about.
Is this something that the National Assembly is addressing?
So far, not. No, they're not addressing that, but they are working on it, I believe so.
So do we even know if he is receiving any treatment within the country?
For the fact that the presidency is not telling us whether he is sick or not, so we can't say. We don't know, but our sources will find out.
Again, Mariam, last Friday, President Buhari missed Friday prayers.
Right.
Is this characteristic of him to not attend Friday prayers?
No.
So when you talk to your sources, what are they saying?
Well, that's another big question, because he hardly missed Friday prayers. So that is why they keep asking the questions. What is going on? Is he really sick? Is he not able to perform his duties?
And it's quite a big concern. And again, a few weeks ago, we saw protests. Nigeria is kind of going down in its economy. And that was about the time he was away. And people are looking for which way do we go? Who do we turn to? How is Nigeria picking up from that, given that the president hasn't been seen He hasn't talked to the public, and nothing really is coming out of the president's office, as you say.
Well, actually, Nigerians are still hoping that the president will do something, will give something to the country. And recent reports from the Central Bank of Nigeria are saying that Nigeria will soon get out of recession. So they're hoping things will work out right soon.
Hopefully you get to dig more and find out exactly what's going on.
Absolutely.
All right. Mariam, we appreciate your insight. Thanks to VOA Hausa reporter Mariam Dauda. Now, an HIV activist in Uganda has come up with a novel approach to encourage young people to protect themselves against the disease. She calls it pill power. Halima Athumani reports from Kampala.
That is no ordinary wind chime on her hand. Barbara Kemigisa has been HIV positive for over a decade. She uses her empty pill bottles as part of her outreach to university students. Her dream is an HIV-free generation.
We are very much interested in seeing this come into a reality by using what we have. And what we have is our own empty bottles, to create more awareness, but also to appreciate, motivate and support our young people living with HIV.
While Uganda is recording an overall decline in new HIV cases, the infection rate remains high among the youth, especially girls and young women. Kemigisa doesn't want them to go through what she did.
I know what it means to swallow those ARVs every day. You know, it's not easy.
She gets creative to reach young people, and she has no shortage of raw material. This room is what defines Barbara Kemigisa's everyday life. She has been able to use these empty antiretroviral bottles to make this chair that is made out of 600 empty bottles, but also the baby crib, the flower vase and the bed, among others. Most of these bottles are Kemigisa's, but other HIV-positive people have started donating. She sells some of her creations and donates others to universities with messages about the importance of taking ARVs. At the university, Kemigisa battles stigma. She explains the importance of knowing your HIV status, and she adds prevention.
70% of the population of mobs is girls, so it is a big challenge. But I'll take an initiative from now. Every time, if I'm to probably go in for sex, I would take protective sex.
The UN warns that globally, new HIV infections among adolescents could rise by nearly 60% by 2030 if more is not done. Kemigisa has accepted that challenge. Halima Athumani for VOA News, Kampala.
U.S. President Donald Trump is getting mixed reviews after completing his first 100 days in office, a traditional point of assessment for a new president since Franklin Roosevelt moved swiftly to counter the Great Depression in the early weeks of his presidency in 1933. We hear more from VOA national correspondent Jim Malone.
To mark his first 100 days in office, Donald Trump held a campaign-style rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with supporters who have stuck with him through good times and bad.
To reflect on an incredible journey together and to get ready for the great, great battles to come, and that we will win in every case, okay? We will win.
In his first 100 days in office, Trump signed a flurry of executive orders that pleased his core supporters. But he struggled to get some important agenda items through Congress, most notably health care reform. Republicans, though, remain generally supportive, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
I like the strike in Syria. I like the bunker buster bomb in Afghanistan. I like the more assertive foreign policy. As I've said repeatedly, I'm not a big fan of the president's tweeting habits.
For Democrats, Trump has been a source of protest and resistance, and that will likely continue, says Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer.
The president's my way or the highway approach is one of the main reasons he has to show little on health care and show little for his first 100 days in office.
The only thing we have to fear
The standard for the most active first 100 days was set by Franklin Roosevelt, who came to power at the height of the Great Depression in 1933. Republicans Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush and Democrats John Kennedy and Bill Clinton all overcame early presidential stumbles to build a record of achievement. But Trump may need some victories soon to turn around his historically low approval ratings, says analyst William Galston.
Success breeds success, and failure tends to breed failure, because once you've demonstrated weakness, your enemies may be more eager to stand up to you, and your friends may be less secure about allying themselves with you.
Trump has worked hard to retain the support of his political base, says Sarah Binder.
There really isn't anybody in the center, and it becomes a little lonely there. I think they get much greater company and boost from turning to their base.
Historically, presidents have the most political leverage early in their term, says historian Richard Norton Smith.
I mean, the greatest single danger that the modern presidency confronts is the risk of overexposure. Not because of anything particularly the president does or doesn't do, but it's simply the incredible saturation coverage that any White House generates these days.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
Successful presidents like Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Reagan were able to broaden their public appeal over time. And that is perhaps the greatest challenge now awaiting Donald Trump. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are scheduled to have a phone conversation Tuesday, their first since Russia condemned a U.S. military attack against Syria last month. Both the White House and the Kremlin confirmed the phone call would take place, but did not disclose the topics of discussion. The two leaders are expected to discuss the civil war in Syria and Putin's continued support of Syrian President Bashar Assad. Tuesday's phone call will be the third between them since Trump won the presidential election. They spoke last month after a terror attack in St. Petersburg, Russia, and a week later, Trump's inauguration in January. There's fear and concern in Egypt's northern Sinai that the Islamic State terror group is trying to impose hardline religious rules in that part of the country. According to Reuters news agency, interviews with residents and reviews of Islamic State videos suggest the group's local affiliate, Sinai Province, has created a morality force known as Hizbah. This is a change in tactics for the affiliate group, which previously had mostly attacked police, soldiers, and their informants. It has also stepped up attacks on Christians inside and outside North Sinai. Now, residents say the Hizbah is seeking to impose strict rules in certain behaviors, including smoking, men shaving their beards, or women exposing their faces. It is a pressing challenge for Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who came to power promising to wipe out Islamist extremism and restore security. A 34-year-old British man who promoted Islamic State using special cufflinks has been sentenced to 8 years in prison. Samata Ullah from Cardiff, Wales, admitted to 5 terrorism charges, including membership of Islamic State. Counter-terrorism officials say he stored material about MISO systems on USB sticks disguised as cufflinks, including instructions on how to avoid detection online. Authorities say an investigation in Kenya led police to Ullah. He had adopted multiple online personas using dozens of email addresses and Twitter accounts. Police say Ullah, operating from his bedroom, had created a one-stop shop for terrorists. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a new report highlights the need for an urgent global response to hepatitis. Stay with us.
Science and technology, here's what's new.
It's a fully electric aircraft, and once in the air, it's like flying a big drone. It's the Kitty Hawk Flyer, an amphibious personal multi-copter Funded by Google's Larry Page, that weighs about 100 kilograms with 8 rotors and 2 large landing pontoons. It's the 8 rotors that make it a multicopter instead of a helicopter. The Kitty Hawk people say their aircraft is tested, safe, and legal in the United States to fly over uncongested waters under certain U.S. Federal Aviation Administration restrictions. The pilot navigates with a touchscreen and 2 stick controllers. The flyer travels at up to 40 kilometers per hour and a maximum of 4.5 meters above the water. They say you don't need a pilot's license and can learn to fly the Kitty Hawk in minutes. They're saying that, not me. The Kitty Hawk Flyer is still in prototype stage. The final version is supposed to be out for sale at the end of this year. No price has been announced. For VOA's What's New, I'm Todd Grossharms.
It's time now for a health update, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lenore Mudu with news about a new report on hepatitis. Lenore.
Thank you, Esther. The World Health Organization recently released its first global hepatitis report, sounding the alarm on the silent killer disease. The World Health Organization's 2017 Global Hepatitis Report says an estimated 325 million people worldwide are living with the chronic hepatitis B virus, HBV, or hepatitis C virus, HCV infection. The report indicates that the large majority of the afflicted lack access to life-saving testing and treatment. As a result, millions of people are at risk of a slow progression to chronic liver disease, cancer, and death. Gottfried Henschel is the WHO's director for the Department of HIV/AIDS and Global Hepatitis Program.
Viral hepatitis is a global health problem and requires an urgent response. More than 1.3 million people were dying of viral hepatitis due to the consequences of viral hepatitis in 2015 alone. Hepatitis B and C can both be treated, and in the case of hepatitis C can be cured. The problem is, and that's what we line out in the report, is that very few people actually know their hepatitis status. And even if they do, very few of them can actually access treatment.
Although overall deaths from hepatitis are increasing, the WHO says new infections of HBV are falling.
Hepatitis B is a vaccine-preventable disease, and what we have seen over the last 20 years is that vaccine coverage has increased in most countries. Therefore, we see fewer infections in children. For hepatitis C, we know that it is transmitted through unsafe hospital practices and through injecting drug use.
84% of children born in 2015 received the 3 recommended doses of hepatitis B vaccine. However, an estimated 257 million people, mostly adults born before the introduction of the HBV vaccine, were living with chronic hepatitis B infections in 2015. There is currently no vaccine against HCV, and access to treatment for hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C virus is still low. WHO's Global Health Sector Strategy on Viral Hepatitis aims to test 90% and treat 80% of people with HBV and HCV by 2030. Joining us in the studio for more on the subject is Jane Pan, Executive Director of the Hepatitis B Initiative of Washington, D.C. Ms. Pan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
First of all, let me have your reaction to this release that the report that WHO released. What is your reaction to this?
We are very, very excited about that. And our Health and Human Services has the same strategic plan for eliminating hepatitis in 2030. And HBIDC is working along with the same strategic plan to eliminate hepatitis in 2030.
Very interesting. In the report, the WHO expert says something very critical. He said that a lot of time people do not know the hepatitis status. Why is that? Is this something that you find as you go in the community, and is there a reason for that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Most of the people who has the hepatitis virus, they don't know it. And the reason is, that's why they call it a silent killer, because there's no symptoms. There's no symptoms that if you have viral hepatitis.
Until it gets to that stage where it's critical.
Until it gets to the stage that it's too late. And it's really not necessary, because there is a cure for hepatitis C, and there's a treatment for hepatitis B, and there's also a prevention with the hepatitis B vaccines.
Now, your organization works in the community to serve underserved communities. What type of hepatitis are you seeing more frequently, given that there is more than one type?
Sure. So we screen for hepatitis B and hepatitis C. So in some communities, hepatitis B is very high prevalent, and in some community, hepatitis C is very high prevalent. So we see both of hepatitis B and C in our communities.
So after the screening, because screening is definitely something that you do very much, having followed your work, after you screen, what next?
So after we screen, for those who tested positive, we try to link them to care. You know, whether they have insurance or not insurance, we tried our best to link each person to appropriate doctor to care.
And do you find that people really understand the message, the type of messaging that you are sharing with them when it comes to this condition?
We find that we have to do a lot of education. And education is the key to tell the public, you know, what is at stake, you know, liver cancer caused by viral hepatitis.
And what is the message really when you work with the community? What do you tell them?
We tell them hepatitis causes liver cancer, and it's not necessary to suffer. And the key is get tested. Get tested, find out your status, your hepatitis status, and there is a cure and there's treatment.
Okay. So it's very important to know your status. Once you know your status, everything starts there. There is hope. It's just like when we think about it, HIV/AIDS, really, you have to know your status.
Right.
But why do you think that we don't hear so much about the need for screening when it comes to hepatitis? Because we hear a lot about HIV/AIDS. You have to know your status, you need to screen. But hepatitis doesn't seem to get that much coverage, at least from my understanding.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That's why a segment like this is very, very helpful. That we need to tell everyone about viral hepatitis, how important it is to find out the status.
So who's most at risk of catching hepatitis, and how can they protect themselves?
So the risk factors is if you come from countries with a high prevalent rate, and if you inject drugs, if you're born in the year of 1945 and 1965, and you should all get tested.
Okay. And how can they prevent themselves besides vaccine?
So, and lifestyle changes,
okay,
and they can prevent, and then find out the status, and get with hepatitis B, there's a vaccine, and that's how they can prevent that.
That's fantastic. Ms. Jane Pan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Great.
Thank you.
And that was Jane Pan. She's Executive Director of the Hepatitis B Initiative in Washington, D.C. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Esther, back to you.
And thank you very much, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Avant-Garde looks for the Met Gala red carpet. We'll be right back.
to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Pop princesses and Hollywood stars took it up a notch at New York's Met Gala on Monday. This year's ball was themed Rei Kwa Kubo, come desk, well, I can't say that. Between they won a homage to structured creations of the Japanese designer, her avant-garde label. Rihanna's floral dress with cutouts and oversized ruffles earned the most mentions on social media. Reality TV star Kim Kardashian shunned extravagance, sporting a white dress with no clutch, no jewelry, and no Kanye West. Ball co-chair Katy Perry sported a head-turning imperial red tulle dress and a veil embroidered with the word "witness." Next up, if you thought farmers only worked in the countryside far away from busy city centers, then think again. A small urban farm in Gothenburg, Sweden, is showing how to make a career in city-based agriculture. It was started in February 2016, not as a green-themed escape from urban life, but an attempt to forge careers as completely self-sufficient city farmers. The crops are sold to local restaurants and high-end chefs in need of fresh produce. And finally, a mobile barbershop is hoping to change the face of homeless in the city of Brisbane. In an Australian first, a purpose-built barbershop on wheels is offering free haircuts to the disadvantaged across the city. It's all possible thanks to the government grant and the help of local sponsors. For people like Hami, who is the first customer, the experience is priceless. It is a service that doesn't discriminate, and anyone wanting any type of cut is made to feel welcome. And that's what's trending today. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When something loses its original shape or form, it does not look very natural or comfortable.
Bent out of shape.
Hey, did you tell Greg about my dinner party?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was invited.
Well, now he's all bent out of shape because I didn't invite him.
I'm sorry.